Sometimes it really helps to remember a rule if you know where that rule comes from. One of the differentiation rules that always looks funny to me is the one that says the derivative of tangent is equal to secant squared. When you first see it, you think, what does tangent have to do with secant squared? Well, we're going to see where this rule comes from. The first step to understanding this differentiation is to rewrite tangent in terms of more basic functions for which you know the rules. Namely, tangent is sine divided by cosine. Now let's go one step further and rewrite this as a product. We have sine times cosine raised to the minus 1. We have a product rule and we have a chain rule. It's time to differentiate tangent in the form that we've rewritten it as above. So, here is the product rule. That means we differentiate the first term, which comes to cosine of x, we leave the second term the same. Then, we differentiate the second term and leave the first term the same. On the second term, we have the chain rule. Differentiating this brings the exponent down in front for a -1. We drop the exponent to -2, leave the inside the same, then multiply by the derivative of the inside, which is minus sine of x. We finished differentiating, but that expression does not look anything like secant squared. This is where you have to go back to your finely honed pre-calculus skills and rewrite the whole expression. The name of the game for simplifying this is getting a common denominator. Notice you have cosine raised to the -1. That means 1 power of cosine appears in the denominator. However, here you have cosine raised to the -2. So you have 2 powers of cosine in the denominator. Therefore, the common denominator will be cosine squared. We have it here, we're missing 1 power here. Now, you take this expression and multiply it by another power of cosine on top and bottom. That gives cosine of x squared divided by cosine of x squared. Here, we don't have to change anything, we just combine the sine, the -1, and the -1. All of that together gives plus sine squared of x. Now it's time to use a trig identity and a definition. The trig identity is here, cosine squared of x plus sine of x squared is equal to 1. We're left with 1 over cosine squared, which is the same thing as secant squared. It might help to have a little more explanation from the last line. Remember, 1 over cosine of x is exactly secant of x. 1 over cosine of x squared is secant of x squared. But remember, this is one of the dirty tricks of notation. Secant of x squared is usually written as secant squared of x. It's exactly the same thing.